Okay, we are ready, Leon. Good evening, listeners. This is Bless Radio. It's just past 6 p.m. UK time, and this is the Spiritual Discussion Program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. I'm Saad in southeast London, and today it's overcast and windy, quite windy. Gregory, how is it where you are?
Just precisely as you have in London, overcast, windy.
Good. I don't know if it's good, but that's how it is today. Welcome, listeners. Gregory, just asking, how has been your week?
It's only Tuesday today.
Yes.
But very busy as usual.
Okay.
Looking forward to Tuesday to the program.
Okay, good. In fact, when I say week, I mean it from even the last Tuesday, because that's the last time we were on the show.
Yeah, you take each day as it comes. All right, in anticipation of the challenges that might have arisen or that has matured. You have to do some reflection and move forward.
Exactly. I think my own week, I can say, I had some let's say you have plans, but these plans go out of the window because something else comes up that you have to deal with. And let's say life is not only about work, it's also enjoyment and, relaxing and so on. So, yes, so that it goes very well with our topic for tonight, listeners. The topic we are having tonight is living aright. Living aright. And you're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp with any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. Excuse me. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with the matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, the topic for our discussion tonight is living aright. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as you know, I like to look in the dictionary, the meaning of the words in the topic, which is tonight living aright. So the first word there is living. And in the dictionary, I got 2 different meanings there. Living, it means to have life or remain alive. That is one meaning they've given. Let me stick with that one first, Gregory. How good is that for our discussion?
Well, thanks. You yourself can see it refers to itself, so it hasn't done much.
Okay, so let's continue with the second meaning. This is again the meaning of the word living. It says the pursuit of a lifestyle of a specified type. And we give examples, the benefits of country living. So there it is, the pursuit of a lifestyle, a specific type.
Sadly, these expressions do not provide a clear concept that can be used because they refer to themselves. And therefore, they haven't given any firm framework, but only a description of what they think it is.
Okay. Can you help us better to give a better understanding there, Gregory, of the word of living? The word living, sorry.
The nearest expression one may use is that of being awake.
Awake.
To be awake in everyday deeds, to be awake in deeds, to be awake in one's thoughts, and to be awake intuitively. Okay. Or one may reframe it and say to be awake in the gross material happenings on earth, to be awake in our thoughts, and to be awake spiritually. When these three are considered and they resonate, then one may say one is alive or one is living.
Thank you very much, Gregory. Definitely, that is a much broader meaning that the dictionary has given, and more, excuse me again for that, more specific, that we can look at. So let me just repeat what you said there, Gregory. This is the word living. You said it's being awake in everyday deeds, thoughts, and intuitively. And another way you said it was being awake in gross material deeds, thoughts, and intuitively. So, or spiritually. So yes, okay. So we'll go into that. And then the next word in the topic is aright, which in a way is obvious, but again, we look in the dictionary, it says aright, meaning correctly, properly. So, Gregory, would you say anything on that meaning there?
Again, that is very fuzzy. Correctly, properly, there must be a framework that is used to determine which is correct or which is proper. Because it hasn't mentioned that framework, it leaves the inquirer into uncertainty.
Okay, thank you for that again, Gregory. So there's a missing framework, because as you say, somebody's one man's is what he thinks is right, or she thinks is right. The other one can say no, it's wrong. So what do we agree or disagree? So there's a missing framework, like you say. Okay. Just think if you look at that word framework, maybe we should look at it now. So the framework, what framework are we looking at? Are we talking earthly, more than earthly? What do we mean by the framework?
By framework, that will be the basis, which are the laws of nature through which nature persists, through which it came into existence. Or, more broadly, the laws of creation, through which all that exists in creation also persist. For when that framework is used, then that which is rightly understood. Else, it will be that people compare their own impressions, whereas what is referred to here is the framework through which all that exists is.
Thank you again for this answer. Excuse me again for that. So I'm now thinking these laws of nature is what we have to look at, and laws of creation also. And and just want to know, Gregory, these laws of nature or creation, you don't really, how can I say, get to know them in any like studying or your religious education that people might have, or even family sort of in when we are brought up, in our lives, and yet it seems so fundamental, and then I'm thinking, well, the only other thing is that we look at is science, where there are laws, you can say, Um, but I'm wondering if that's the laws you're referring to when you say laws of nature, when you say the laws of nature. Is that the same as the laws we find in science?
Absolutely not. For the laws of so-called science are basically simulations. That means they build models, they do modeling, and they then use the models which they have to predict further events. If the predictions turn out to be realistic, they hold on to the model. If not, they discard that particular model and they keep searching for others. So that which the scientists do has not yet got a firm framework, for it keeps changing and changing because they need to keep updating it. Therefore, that which needs to be updated again and again cannot in itself become a law in nature, in creation. The laws which is being referred to here are the laws of motion, which laws have always been there. For everything which exists is in motion. Therefore, it is right to say motion is a law in creation. In all activities, whether it's in nature, whether it's in the human personality, in their thoughts, in their intuitions, in their spirit, there is motion. So it is that motion which we know is ubiquitous. That is what is referred to in this particular case.
Thank you very much for that, Gregory. I want to look at another angle now. In my research, when I was looking up living aright as whole, I found something righteousness or righteous. And I thought, okay, what is righteous? So I looked at also in the dictionary, and they said there two meanings they gave: righteous, morally right or justifiable. And another word, I will say the second one as well, which is morally good or virtuous. So now, Gregory, where does that fit in? You've been just talking about these laws of nature and creation, and are these laws somehow related in any way with moral, you could say, behavior at all? Being virtuous and being good? Is there any connection there? These laws of nature?
Even that which many may refer to as being virtuous, being good, even those ones must be considered with a framework. And therein lies what has been the challenge. For a people, a person, a different reference may define what they themselves call good, and what they may refer to as virtuous. Yet there is no framework. And then you have, in the final analysis, you have that one man's food is another man's poison. Therefore, this is more of a philosophy. And life is not of a philosophy. Life itself, which has arisen out of motion, which motion is ubiquitous, which cannot be reduced because it is motion itself. Life is in motion. And all that have come into existence are also in motion. Therefore, it is the laws which these motion have put forward. It is these laws that are the framework that man needs to consider. And therefore, when one is talking about being virtuous, being virtuous with relation to the way nature has presented it, virtuous in the sense of continuity, for only out of goodness would motion have come into existence. Only out of goodness, out of virtue, out of diligence, all this, when considered, that which is virtuous, must have arisen out of motion. The challenge is, how does man understand it? That has always been the problem.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this answer you've given there. What I'm seeing from what you've been saying is that, we, let's say, human beings like to, I don't know, pigeonhole or understand life in a particular way. As I say, talking about laws of science or laws, the moral code, say, but that's sort of looking only on the surface, and not really, you could say, at the source of this, life and how it operates and functions, So when we're talking about, let's say, good or virtues and so on, we don't necessarily directly connect that with life, directly. It's something we come after that, there's life and then there's other things coming from there. You could say, let's say, from there it can be good and there can be bad, but we haven't, let's say, seen the real wisdom in life itself, that it all inherently it has, through this, for example, when you mentioned law of motion there, which you can say is such a fundamental thing, that's always in every happening. It's there, but maybe we are so unconscious of it, and that's actually what's behind everything that is happening. Everything is happening through motion. Excuse me. So and then you wonder, okay, so what's behind that motion? What's trying to think of the right word for that. What is the law? Law of motion, we say, law of motion. So what is this law of motion actually? First thing came in my head when I'm looking from the scientific thinking. Oh, to have motion, you must have an action, and then you have, by having an action, you have a reaction. So this is something you could say easy to understand, and then you can say, okay, if you do good, there will be, let's make an assumption for now, there'll be a reaction to a good action. You think in your mind, you might think, okay, it should be a good reaction automatically. And if you do, let's say, a bad action, then you get a bad reaction. So that is happening in a law of motion. You can look at it that way. And then it's very neutral rather than, oh, you did something bad or you did something good. You're looking on a, so it's very objective when you see it, where you're talking about it as a law of motion, and then that framework And also with that, it's universal. It's not, oh, one, like you say, one man's food is another man's poison, because everybody has their different point of view then. And here, it's a universal thing. When you do an action, there's going to be a reaction. So and the law of motion is, behind that. So, okay. Now, the topic is living aright. And I'm thinking, Gregory, so going back to us human beings, how we live, you're brought up, or you're born as a child or baby, and you're brought up by your parents or your guardian, and they teach you, and of course you go to school as well. So that's where you learn, you could say, if I'm going to use the word good and bad characters or codes, and how to say to live aright, uh, and so I'm somehow going back to this sort of moral, you could say, training or teaching. Um, so people are maybe brought up in a particular belief, and then they're taught that. So let me ask you, Gregory, about these. I mean, you've talked about the law of motion there, but people are not really taught that, not at least not in a conscious way. So I want to think, how do we? So the way Gregory, people are brought up, he's talking about living aright. Are people being, let's say, whatever they're following, and how can they sort of know that if that is living aright or not? Because we are not taught about about this, the way you put it, the law of motion. We're not really taught it in that way. We're taught more in a belief or some sort of code, moral code or life code. So is that right? That training that people are brought up with? Agree.
Strictly speaking, many teacher, be it in schools or parents, they may share with another that which they have come to know. They cannot share with you that which they themselves do not yet know. When the laws of motion are mentioned, one has to reflect on them not only superficially, like you have in the sciences or even our thoughts, but one has to reflect on them deep enough, also in spirit. Therein lies the challenge. For many, only use at best their thoughts, or gross materially they observe and investigate in accordance with their capacity. But the inner capacity, which in itself has arisen out of motion, many, because they themselves have not been using it, would not know how to arrive at such. When it is said that motion is a law in creation, first one must observe that motion, they are basically only of two types. The first type is that motion in which the end of the motion flows back to the beginning of the motion, which many refer to as vibration, which many have different names for. but to use, to draw out characteristics of that motion in which the end flows back to the beginning, one may refer to, or one of the characteristics of that type of motion as that of reciprocal activity. Another characteristic which one may extract from that motion in which the end flows back to the beginning, one can have a picture of a flinging out in and subsequently an attraction. That characteristic may be referred to as an attraction of that which is homogeneous. Again, therefore, one may hold on to the other second characteristic as that of the attraction of homogeneous species. So from one law, one irreducible law of motion in creation, we now have two characteristics. First, that of the attraction of homogeneity and that of reciprocal activity. Since all that exists exhibits these qualities, one can already picture the lives of men, the thoughts of men, the intuition of men, all that exists in nature. One can already have a broad picture and hold on to it. The other, in which the end of the motion does not flow back to the beginning, one can see, it can use that, a characteristic in which one part in that process stands higher than the other part when one considers that process. That's when considered very intuitively points to that of gravitation. So one can picture gravitation as the crowding together, yet at the same time, it already differentiates one from another. So from these two simple types, we can easily picture the laws of motion or the laws of nature. For nature in itself is in motion, for creation in itself is in motion, and all that exists in nature, all that exists in creation is in motion and are subjected to these laws. It is that which is referred to when it is said motion is a law in creation. And therefore, when one must examine living aright, means one first must be aware of these processes, which one lives intuitively, sometimes unconsciously. Look at the process of breathing. All human beings, they breathe, they exchange. This is motion. When you are born, you grow until you get to an adult and all that. That in itself is motion. And it gets to a point where the bodies existed and the body is dropped, and that which makes use of the physical body departs. That in itself is motion. Therefore, it is ubiquitous. It is that which is referred to. That science hasn't yet arrived at it does not annul that. After all, we also have that science can only make use of that which they themselves can measure. Yet they cannot see your thoughts. They cannot see your intuitions. And therefore, it is very fuzzy to many a science. But that is not the purpose of the discussion. So you will find that many a teacher who has not got to that extent to grasping this, that a teacher cannot offer you that which he himself or herself has not got. Although every creature, every particle is subjected to this motion and also to the laws through which they themselves came into existence. Sometimes you find that there is some sensing when the human personality observes the objects in nature. These are cognitive objects. Cognitive objects in the sense that they are used for perceptions, like the five senses. These are channels used to perceive the objects. Therefore, many a time you have, when a personality matures, albeit gradually, there is a move from that cognitive object to a recognition. So a recognition becomes like an awakeness, a state in which that which has been there seems to be uncovered. That means there is a recognition, and this has always been gradual. Whether it is in the so-called scientific, in which is gross material, or in our thoughts, or in our intuitions, it is still a recognition. So you also have the possibility where the human spirit, through its intuitive perception, is able to recognize that which is homogeneous in spirit. Again, that in itself is motion, which we said is ubiquitous, which we said exists everywhere. So it is self-consistent. What the human personality has not asked, where comes the power that enables motion in creation, in nature?
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this, I'm going to say, long explanation to, give this, you could say, picture of, as you say, recognition or cognition that we need to achieve, so that we can see that this world is, what is our, how can I say, we maybe know it unconsciously, some of these things, but it needs to become to our conscious level of awakening. That's what you started with earlier when we're looking at the meaning of the word living aright, to be awake in everyday deeds, thoughts, and in our intuition. So really becoming conscious, basically awake meaning becoming conscious of the life that is around us, and in a very, you see, in all different levels, not just the physical level, the earthly level that we are very familiar with. So thank you for that. Dear listeners, I want to let you know you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, then you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is living aright. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we are broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, .com /home, HOME. You can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, live stream. That's for the live show, which we broadcast on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. And you can listen to the recording of this show the next day, also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is living aright. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we're broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM / Bless Radio 1, the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, I mean, there's a lot, you can say, how we are living and how we can know what is living aright. So let me go into something, let's say that I sort of hinted it earlier, you could call it the religious, I know it may be less and less in the Western world, people do this, but there are still places in the world people follow religious teachings and so on. And so one of the, let's say, bigger ones, we can say, Christians and the Jews also, they are supposed to follow the 10 commandments of God. Thou shalt not steal, honor father and mother, I'm not going to, I can't even think of all of them at the moment, but these are the, you can say, the commandments that people are meant to follow, which you could say are pretty much, well, let's say most of the world has something very similar that they have in their laws in their countries. So in a way, you can say that's quite universal. And but there, Gregory, we are being told, do this or don't do that. You know, what you have been pointing to, it looks like, is something we have to come to another level uh, of. For example, you've mentioned the laws of motion, which is where how, let's say, all life came into being. So it's like more fundamental. So I'm wondering, Gregory, um, how can we connect these commandments with those laws of nature that you have mentioned? Um, can we uh, come to the same answer there, or is it something separate that almost something in addition to the laws of motion? Because you're thinking about nature, and so yeah, can you just somehow connect these, you could say, teachings or commandments that have been given to us, or some of us, and the laws of nature, which are like just always there, but it's like something we have to discover. So is there any connection there, Gregory, that are we meant, because we're talking about living aright, so are we meant to learn in a conscious way through learning from nature, and then also God sends us teachings, and I was going to use the word other laws, but these laws have to align, as I was going to say. So is there something more than just the laws of nature to understand and to know? Uh, for example, the Ten Commandments in addition?
Well, thanks for this particular question. The disconnect between the laws of nature or the laws of creation and the commandment, that disconnect is man himself. For he himself or herself has not come to an understanding of these laws which have been given as commandments. At the beginning, one mentioned the laws of motion, from which creation laws or laws of nature came into being. And then, not long ago, there was this mention that the power that made it possible for these laws of motion, there very clearly, for a discerning one can already see that there is a close relation between the first commandment, which first commandment relates to that power, personal, that made it possible for all to come into existence. Therefore, that first commandment is supreme. The others are only an appreciation, supporting, to ensure that that first commandment is unbroken intuitively. Therefore, where you have the second, the third, the fourth, as long as you have a community, which community ensures there should be continuity and also the lack of fear, a community in which there will be vibrancy, which vibrancy in itself is motion, which continuity itself is motion. For people to live in harmony in itself is motion, then it becomes very clear that it is in motion, one for all and all for one. Again, that gives the impression of the different parts supporting one another. That is clearly reflected in the Ten Commandments. So, be it the Ten Commandments or the Lord's Prayer, it is equivalent. It is one and the same thing, given at different times in the maturity of the human race. It hasn't changed. Just as you have in a language, when at the beginning you have that you use simple words, simple expressions for the child, and as the child grows up and matures, there are a few more words which are introduced into them, and the child grows up and matures to become an adult. Then those rules that have been put in place initially in their maturity, they find that it is intrinsically the same. So has it been with the Ten Commandments or the prayer which is given by Him who Himself is a part of the power Himself. So all these things are simply connected and is left as, in quotes, homework. For only in self-exertion can one come to see these things the way they are. Therefore, one is in sort of jolting many a person into motion, into deeper reflection, so that before long, in making such efforts, they will come to realize that indeed it is so. So it is also willed in this walk, in the light of truth, the Grail message. For only through self-exertion, not only in deeds which are perceptible to the five senses gross materially, but also self-exertion in their thoughts. All these all imply motion, and above all, self-exertion in their spirit. With that, many a thing that will move the human personality from its current cognition to a much bigger base of recognition. Many a thing will now be uncovered, a recognition, such that The personality is able to see the connection between things. For in all things, it is the connection or the disconnection that enables us to form the right conception. Form the right conception in the sense that the logic which is there, this logic has come out of motion. That is the way it has been and will ever remain. For that which many call religion, which is a set of thoughts, that set of thoughts must be examined whether it is self-consistent or not. If it is self-consistent, as you have in the case of motion, then it will survive. If it is not self-consistent, but only meant as a transition, then before long it will be discarded. And only that which is of benefit, which the spirit, which is in vibrant motion, can hold on to as experience, will be of benefit to it here, whilst on earth, or hereafter.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer there. You know, life is all about, you could say, learning, and you know, each of us is on a journey of this learning, and everybody's like, you know, in different levels, you know, like you go to school, and so each one will take from what we are discussing and talking about, what they will take according to what, you know, what they can absorb and understand. So that's like an individual thing. Then of course we also we don't exist by ourselves. We have our fellow human beings with us on this earth that we interact with. You know, our daily, you could say, work, family, you know, interactions that we have, and each one, you could say, presents as an opportunity for us to grow as well, and you know, how to, you could say, have good behavior, character, you know, and of course we will make mistakes, and you know, and even you could say when people respond to our whatever actions and decisions that we make, they are like a mirror for us to, you know, how they respond to what we do or act. So all of this is like help for us to grow. Now I'm thinking there, Gregory, you know, people have, you can say, dreams and goals. They could be earthly, let's say, and then you work towards those goals, but then you might, Gregory, not be paying attention to what you're doing right now. You know, it's not deliberate, but it just can happen, and then you're not, you could say, fully present, as some people say. You're not fully present, not fully aware, because you talked about being aware. So I'm just wondering, and then only through an interaction maybe with another person, that you might, the other person said, oh, look, this is some, you know, let's say you're walking into some sort of lamppost. You're walking along the road and you're thinking about something, and then the lamppost is there, but you don't see it because your mind is somewhere else. And then somebody might point it out, or something might happen that you don't actually get hit by the walk into the lamppost, let's say. So what I'm wondering there, Gregory, this being aware, can we trying to think. How can I put it? Can we, Gregory, be, let's say, appreciate reality? Maybe I'm being a bit hard using saying that word, but what I want to basically say, Gregory, is about being in focus of that you live aright. So how can we, Gregory, you could say, live a life in balance when we can think about the present, the future, and even reflect on the past without, you could say, losing, going somehow astray, you know, or making some mistake where you injure yourself some way, so where you lose attention and have accident or something like that. So how can we, Gregory, balance all these things about our goals of the future, doing what we're doing now in the present, and then also, you could say, reflecting from the past? So I'm sorry I'm putting all these things in one basket, but I could have given a practical example of with another person uh, uh, as a way to go into this question. But I think I've made my point in this question. So, Gregory, how do we, live aright with the past, present, and future things that we have to consider?
Well, in your expressions, you said live aright. And in the earlier responses, the mention was made of the framework of being aright, which framework are the laws of creation, the laws of nature. Again, in your discussion, you gave a scenario in which there is a goal. That goal of the future, goal of the present, and also reflecting on the past. From your discussions or from the expressions, it becomes very clear that that which you yourself has classified as the future is that which has not yet been attained. And therefore, that still has to be reached. To reach the future, there is the need to start from somewhere. That point where you started from, one may now say that is the present. There is no jump into the future. It is taken in small steps. It is taken in humility. Since it is taken in humility, in little steps, to be able to focus on the goal, that requires diligence. That diligence is a virtue. Because it is In small steps, one has classified it or categorized it as humble steps or modest steps. After all, when you are learning a language, you don't learn to speak the language all of a sudden in no time. You take it in your own stride. The goal must not be forgotten. Therefore, one has to be faithful to the goal. That in itself is faithfulness. The opportunity which has been granted, even for you to reflect, that is a grace, which grace has been put in there by the wisdom that made it possible for motion, for the laws of creation, the laws of nature to come into being. That in itself is a grace. In accomplishing in little steps, in modesty, that particular path which one has taken, that leads to alertness. Because in this focus, there must be vigilance. Vigilance not only in deeds, but also vigilance in our thoughts, vigilance in our intuition, that is spiritually. Also, it is vigilance and alertness in deeds, in thoughts, and in spirit. Along the line, the tendency is that one is unable to accomplish as much as one has set out, albeit in little steps. And one is not alone. There are others who have goals. In the case of one for all and all for one, not having been able to accomplish some of the goals set along the line, one comes to have a good understanding, compassion, not only for oneself, but also for others. And subsequently, knowing that one for all and all for one, that sounds more like compassion in its operation. So, the goal itself, which impels the individual into all this, these are parts of the characteristics which the human personality needs to develop. But to develop, which is basically to uncover, that already gives a strong impression that these talents had already been implanted within the human personality that needs to be uncovered. For one does not expect to find these talents, these virtues that need to be unearthed in plants, in stones, or in the soil, but only deep within the human personality. The human personality, not the manifestation of the human personality in which you see as flesh and blood, but much more than that. So you find that what you yourself has painted out is how do we accomplish these, the manifestation of these virtues that have been sown into us in vibrant activities. And that's what gradually, that's the picture one has tried to paint. For only in activities can the human personality awaken to the recognition of fruit, awaken to the recognition of the operations of life, to the recognition of love. For only through vibrant activities can one come to this. To awaken to recognition of the light gives the impression that those skills which have not been awakened cannot help you to come to a cognition. But before long, in patience and perseverance, in selflessness and dedication, in earnest good volition, step by step, the human personality will awaken to the light. To awaken to the light doesn't mean one becomes the light himself. For the human personality who has been asleep, that means these innate ability has not been used. When the personality who is asleep awakens, it awakens to the beauty of the day, is able to perceive of the challenges and may know how to respond to it. Having awakened to the day, to the light, does not make him or her light himself. For the light itself is different. For the law itself, which law is an expression of a will, which will is in motion.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that answer and picture you painted there. Step by step, it shows already in these words. You can see you take care as you go, you know. And then another one you said, all for one and one for all. That gives you like a big picture that, you know, if you see things in that way, then, you know, you're not doing just for yourself, you know, you're helping others as well. And actually that leads up to my next question there, Gregory. Sometimes you come across someone on your path whom, let's say, is in need, and I put that in quotes because it's a person is a stranger and you don't know. Oh, the first question might happen, let's say they're a beggar and obviously they're asking for money. That's what beggars do. But then underneath, the person is a stranger. You don't know is genuine, that he's asking for money because he's really in need, or he's a scammer. You can say he's trying to collect money, or you might think a bit more and say, oh, okay, is that really going to help this person? If I give the person money, will he use it? You could say, is it just a short-term thing? And maybe that's okay for you as well, just for the moment you're giving the help. Or you could say, no, if I do that, I'm just encouraging him to continue to stay as a beggar rather than get himself out of this problem. I mean, I know I'm saying so many things here, but the reason I'm saying these things is you want to live aright, you want to help people aright. Let's say those who are in genuine need and who would, let's say, use it in a proper way. So I'm wondering, Gregory, can we, when we come across somebody who's, let's say, in this case, I'm using the person as a beggar as an example, asking for some help through money, and Gregory, can we, would that be a real help to the person? I mean, every situation individual will be different. Of course, I see that and accept that. But how do we know, Gregory, if what we're doing is, as I say, in this case, I say live right, if we are doing the right decision, should we assess the person before we give the help, or we just say, okay, it doesn't matter, I just give the help anyway, and what happens, happens? So I'm sorry I'm giving you multiple questions there, but just how do we sort of act in this type of situation when we find somebody on our path?
That is a very good question in the sense that these are what accost us on a daily basis. And therefore, only through experiencing again and again do we mature. What we are thinking, most of our thoughts are such that we expect to know the answers immediately. When you start learning a language, you do not immediately know how to structure your language. But with time, you yourself become aware how you should structure your language in the sense that you are becoming more aware of how life itself, which is more of a language, how it is spoken. Because you yourself now have to, in your struggle with the challenges in which you have, can, first in your thoughts, also in your intuition, now have a good measure of the motive. Which motive is what lies behind the challenge which you face. Learn from the motive, albeit in modest steps. Many would wish they already know the answer. Either that which has challenged you is a return of one of your decisions in the past. It could be in a different life. Or that which is challenging you now how to respond, it jolts you to deeper reflection such that you yourself will now know how to handle it in the future. Albeit these are the little tokens which are woven in the path that the human personality has to take in order to mature. So there will be no need to intellectually calculate, should I or should I not? But with a firm good volition, before too long, that which has been challenging you, you wouldn't know how to respond, becomes very clear, because you will find that you would have come across many in learning this language that some parts repeat themselves, and along the line you then mature. So it is not a matter of, oh, I want to live aright. To live aright only means to be awake to the challenges, to be able to know the motive behind the challenges, whether it is deceptions or not. So in the discussions like this, these discussions are always pointers, transformation, like arrows, showing the human personality the steps they must take, modest steps to enable the human personality, deep, which human personality presents itself first externally, in which you find the human body. In this human body, with the five senses, which draw in all the external impressions, and it is needed for maturity. So, in whatever the case is, be it pleasurable or unpleasurable, all these accumulate to jolt the human personality to awaken not only in thoughts, but also in their intuition, also in spirit. That is the purpose.
Thank you very much again there for your answer, Gregory. What I can see is that we don't have a set answer that this must be this way or this must be that way. Each experience, because we have to just learn from each experience. So whatever, your first time you do something, you're not going to know much. So let's say, in quotes, you could be scammed, or you might be lucky, you have the right good person there. So you just have to see what happens as when you have this experience. Now, Gregory, there's something in the news at the moment. I always like to mention things from the news. So this is for people in UK more than outside of UK, I would say. So currently there's a famous comedian called Russell Brand, who's been accused of, by the way, he's very active on the internet. There's a political activist and wellness guru, but he's been accused of, in his past, of grooming women and committing sexual assault and rape. And he's admitted that he was a promiscuous person in this time, but he claims that everything he did was consensual. So, and he doesn't understand why these allegations are coming to him many, many years later. Let's say more than 10 years later. And of course, the media is exposing that, so there could be other motives underneath it. Any case, I just want to reflect or look at this, what is happening, that, you know, um, things from the past, let's say, which could be, let's say, are wrong, that were done wrong, and now the person has reformed, let's say, is not that way anymore, but people are pursuing him or about the past, and that is obviously going to affect the person's reputation uh, and career and so on, and not in a negative, not in a good way, of course. So it's going to hurt the person. This star called Russell Brand. Also, but there's another angle. They say, oh, this famous star, he has more power over the people that are around him, especially these women in this case, who are, let's say, either working with him or some women that he's come across, and they are, in some cases, dependent. Their career is dependent on his sort of reputation being, in being good. So for that, and then for their, so it's like a, how can I say, everything's connected somehow together, that almost even the people around the producers and so on, sometimes you see they're in the entertainment industry are protecting, or knowingly or unknowingly, uh, they consider, oh, the sexual assault, okay, that's not as important as the business that they're involved in. So things are not taken so seriously. But now, as we have said, these things are coming to haunt him of the past, even though he might be a different person now, but let's say a better character than he was in his past. So my question on this is there, Gregory, uh, um, can I mean, should a person be condemned for their past? And you could say they ruin their uh, and actually, I mean, there's so many points it's coming to me, and I've thought about it also. This is all happening in the public arena, not in, not in court, or not in the sort of police are not, let's say, they're not so deeply involved at this stage, or they probably will be soon, but it's all happening in the public arena. So you can say all these happenings, are they really right to happen this way, that something of the past, and the person is, let's say, changed from that bad behavior of the past to today, should they be punished for that, of the past, and pay the consequences of that, or should they have some opportunity for redemption, because they are not the same as they were in the past?
As has been discussed already, many a challenge comes across our path. Some of this challenge could be as a result of our initial activity in which we had sown. Some may not be, and therefore they are there to strengthen the individual along the line. But something should be considered. The facts are not the fiction. Whoever is discerning, who has enough time in his hand, authorities, police, whatever they care to call themselves, must examine the facts and not the fiction. That's the first point. And secondly, the motives behind the facts. Only then can one have a well-rounded picture to make a decision. One cannot make a decision to harm another based on fiction, which are not connected to the individual. So there must be thorough examination of the facts and not fiction. And also, as many are likely to do in the police force, the motives behind the facts. That is all that one may check. Only when those become very clear can the next step be taken. But since that has not been done, then it's more of gossips around or an academic exercise.
Thanks for that, Gregory. Because as they say, we should always try to put ourselves in these situations so that we can, really appreciate it. Because something happened, let's say 10, 15, 20 years ago, the culture was different at this time. And now, let's say, not that it cannot happen again, these things, but let's say there's lesser chance of it because there are new rules and regulations and way how things are handled. And what I was thinking, Gregory, yes, one person in quotes is, again, I know these are called allegations. We don't say they're absolute, but we just take it as a story that something has happened, and we just go by that story as to discuss it as a scenario. So if, let's say, somebody has abused another person, and that other person, in this case, they are quoting somebody younger, less experienced and whatever, has been taken advantage and so on. But they themselves didn't recognize, because we've seen it happen in many cases, other cases as well, where the younger person, they had not really recognized, oh, somebody's actually doing bad to them. And only years and years later, when they see it in the news, oh, this happened to this person, and now, that's what happened to me too. So suddenly they wake up. Gregory, we're talking about being awake here, and it obviously takes time. We mentioned that. Go step by step, and things happen, and you start waking up. This happened to me. So then the question arises, okay, but now, what do you do now? Do you have to go back and sort out what happened in the past years ago? And you're thinking, but no, what you're living now, can you go back to the past and ask someone to pay for that past? Or you say, no, we look at the present. Actually, the person is like this now, what should he, so these are the points I'm trying to bring out, not actually so much, oh, this person has done that, or that person has done that, or that person was the victim, it's more about, I will say, we can all learn from these stories and experiences of other people being shared in public, and then and it's all coming together, Gregory. That's the thing I wanted to make reference to. Yes, let's say somebody did something wrong, but then, everybody is now saying, okay, this person should be condemned, cancelled in the sense of no more business with the person, and it's like, now he can't even do anything. His career is completely over. So, and as I say, if we put ourselves in this situation, I'm thinking, wait a minute. Yes, you should pay for what you do, but it doesn't mean your life is over. That's not, because otherwise, where's your chance for redemption for these things? And those people who have been victims, not to, as I say, to say justify anything, but maybe this is their opportunity to also, because only now they're recognizing it. They didn't recognize at that time. Otherwise, they would have made some noise. Even they had fear at that time. I appreciate that. But now they recognize it. So you wonder now, what do you do today? Maybe it is just to let people know so that we are aware of these things, and then we can, all of us, as we say, Gregory, one for all and all for one. We can all wake up to these things, that that's what's been going on, and that used to happen in this type of culture. But no, that is not right, and we don't do this anymore. So everybody wakes up and learns, and it's like a mutual benefit for all. So I see it in a broad way, not just, oh, a person A did something to person B, or a number of people. That's, yes, that happened, but you know, and the more I've reflected on the story, when people's accounts have been said, they even said, "Oh, that's not the person that they were." It's I don't want to go into too much specifics, but the person was acting as if, I don't want to say they were possessed, but they were different to what they normally would be. So they, there could be lots of things going on. Addiction. I could go on forever into the story, just to try to get to the level of understanding of it. It's really quite complex in a way, but at the same time, wrong is wrong and right is right. So does it mean somebody's done wrong, they now have to pay for life for what they sinned? Or can they just learn from it? And the other person also, the victim, also can say, okay, it's happened, uh, and we can move forward and move and grow from it. So this is my, you could say, take, or my thinking about this situation. Gregory, do you want to say anything further?
There is nothing one should add to these matters, because the motives, which motives are real behind these activities which have manifested, it is the motives that one should learn from and make sure it becomes an experience. For the world is filled with this, whether it be nations that have precipitated war, or peoples of different cultures that have murdered, bastardized many things. It's all, the history is there, whether it is with religions that have done so many terrible things and very little good. It's so much for humanity to learn from. But above all, is that sense of having learned the lessons, not only gross materially, but spiritually, which is most challenging, having come to recognition, to learn, to forgive, in the sense as to sever oneself from those things.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, I just want to remind you, you're listening to Blessed Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of our show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. And if you're interested to know more about the Grail message, or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is living aright. You are welcome to join us with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And we're broadcasting on Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, .com / Home, Home. Also, you can listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, live stream. That's for the live show. You can listen to the recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is Living Aright. And of course, you can listen to the recordings of our previous shows as well, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, I was wondering, what I've been not talking in our examples of scenarios, Gregory, there's always, in quote, somebody with advantage situation and the other one with a disadvantage situation, like a more powerful person and then a less powerful person, or a person with more resources and the other one with less. So it seems always like an imbalance. And sometimes you're wondering, Gregory, is it like you see in nature a fight between the animals? Well, I know that is Darwin's theory. The fittest is the one that survives, and then the not so fit one has to, you could say, die out. And so with the human beings, Gregory, I'm wondering, is that nature working with the human beings as well? Bringing scenarios where the stronger ones seem to have, let's say, advantage, and the weaker ones have to suffer. And somehow, through nature, each one has to learn from the other. I don't know. It just came to me, this thing, just now. So I wonder, nature is working for, of course, we don't have to kill each other. That's not what is meant to happen. But maybe that's how we are growing, Gregory. Is that how, yeah. Or can everybody be of the same level and work, I don't know, grow together? So I don't know if that's going to make us grow.
May I request that you precisely reframe your question?
Yes. What I'm saying, Gregory, in nature, with the animals, we see that, let's say, the stronger animals, overcome the weaker ones. But I'm just saying, is nature working in a similar way with the human beings, with those who are stronger human? And when I say stronger, I know I'm talking with resources, but so, yeah. Is there something similar, let me say that way, Gregory, what happens with animals in their struggle with the human development with regards to nature?
With the animals, what one has perceived is the struggle for alertness, to be able to protect themselves. Their inner call is not of spirit. You yourself cannot hold an animal responsible. You can't say, oh, the pussycat did this and therefore must go to court and be punished. Or that a fly did this and therefore the fly has to be punished. Or the horse did this and you go to court and that horse will be punished. It is not so with the human personality. The human personality has the free will to decide. Therefore, the standard to which the human personality will be measured is very different from the standard from which the animal will be measured. For the animal or the human personality, these are different species. And because they are different species, one species has free will. That means one species has the free will to decide spiritually. But that which is of spirit is higher than that which is of animistic. And therefore, that which is of spirit can do more good. That which is of spirit can come to recognition. That which is of spirit can unfold in faithfulness and truthfulness, in diligence and heroism, in courage and selflessness. That which is of spirit is capable of wisdom, of humility, of compassion, of vigilance and alertness. That which is of spirit, which needs to build itself into a self-conscious human personality, has its goal as earnest good volition based on its intrinsic quality of the free will. That which is of spirit is capable of everlasting love and readiness to serve the other. Not only to serve the other, but to serve within creation in accordance with the creative will. That which is of spirit, whence it has cultivated patience and perseverance, is able to transmit power which has been passed on to it to others that are below it. That which is of spirit is capable of absolute selflessness and dedication. You do not expect those from those who lack the free will. Therefore, there is no basis to compare the capabilities of the Spirit, which had been sown so that it may bring it forth. And you have the scenario where it neglects these intrinsic capabilities that should make it a self-conscious human personality and degrade itself into lawlessness. Apples may be compared to apples. Oranges may be compared to oranges. Human personalities may be compared to human personalities. Those things which science has observed, like was discussed initially, are only outer features which are incomplete. And that is why when they make a model, they observe if subsequently there are other features which they can attach to that model, arrive, they discard the initial model and try to improve it. That is how it is, and that's how science works. Science looks at only the outermost manifestation, not the motive, what lies behind it. Many a time, the conclusions are wrong. But the possibility is there to reformulate it, to make sense. So when one observes these things, you do not expect, or one should not expect, that the Ten Commandments given to many a human personality who possess the free will should be given to a fly or should be given to a lizard. So it is very clear to whom much has been granted from that personality, much is demanded in accordance with the creative laws that had granted these gifts.
Thank you so much for that answer there, Gregory. Really showing that animal and human are very different in their nature and abilities and so on. So thank you. I want to read something in following from what you've said there, Gregory, from the Grail message from the lecture called Ideal Human Beings. So this, it says, it is a man's duty on earth to set himself the highest attainable goal and to strive for this goal with all the powers at his disposal. But as a human being, this excludes from the beginning that, like an animal, he should merely trouble himself about food and drink, as unfortunately many men do, or let himself be goaded by the intellect into striving only for worldly greatness or fame, without keeping in view as the main purpose the general welfare and advancement of mankind. All such people have less value on earth than the animals, because an animal is always completely and unaffectedly what it should be, even if it only serves to keep the other creatures on the alert, so that no hampering indolence sets in, which might lead to decline and disintegration. For movement is a vital condition of life in creation. Be on the alert. The person who really strives towards the ideal can be recognized by his efforts to uplift existing things on earth, not the intellectual sense of increasing power and position, but towards ennobling them. All his ideas will possess the possibility of being realized on earth and will bring gain to the individual as well as mankind in general. So, dear listeners, that is from the Grail message lecture titled Ideal Human Beings. The goal of the human being, which is really, as you say many times, Gregory, all for one and one for all. But yes, we work on the earth, but the benefit is much deeper than that. It reaches at, in a much higher level. But So thank you for that, what you've said today, Gregory. We've come to the end of the show, listeners, on the topic of living aright. So I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. And as usual, I'd like to end with from the foreword of the Grail message, which is titled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and staff. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring in your religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this in the form of ready-made opinions of others only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore, awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Aprushin. So listeners, if you would like to get a copy of the Grail message or want to get more information on the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. That's www.grail, message, message.com. Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing all listeners a very beautiful week.
Thank you. And same for me, listeners. Thank you for being with us tonight. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday with another topic. I wish you a great week. God bless.